This happened when I was home alone around the age of 11. My parents' house is located in the suburbs, surrounded by woods and the golf course. It was a stormy night and my parents went out for dinner. I was watching TV in the living room with my dog Jessie on my lap, when all of a sudden she jumps up and sprints to the front door barking. For clarification, Jessie never barks. My dad trained her not to because she has a very annoying bark. I walk over and turn on the outside light. No one is there. As soon as I did this, she sprinted to the back living room by the pool with sliding glass doors and starts barking over there like someone was inside the screened pool area. I run over and turn the pool lights on. Again, no one was there. I started to get kind of freaked out. Jessie then ran to the garage door, barking like she was going to rip someone's face off. I grab a knife from the kitchen and open the garage door to hear the rain and see the main garage door wide open. I immediately shut the garage door and slammed the inside door behind me, grabbed my dog and ran into my room, locking the door and going into the closet. I waited in there what felt like 3 hours for my parents to get home. I told them everything. My dad went outside to find what looked like new muddy footprints around the garage and pool area. Nothing else ever came about this, but I sure as hell got the chills typing this out to you. It was a freaky experience. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a modern building on the 5th floor out in Texas. The layout is this. You come in and there is a very small hallway area. To the left is the kitchen. To the right is a bathroom and bedroom. Straight ahead is the living room area. I came home from work one night after picking up some Burger King. I got the mail downstairs, went to my apartment, opened my door, and walked to the living room area while sort of looking at the mail in my right hand. I plopped down on the couch, turned on the television, spread out the Burger King, and started chowing while watching some show. When I finished dinner, I watched TV a bit more, and then went to throw out the wrappers and bag in the kitchen trash. When I stood up to go to the kitchen, there were 2 feet sticking out of my kitchen doorway into the hall, as if the rest of the person it was attached to was laying on its back on my kitchen floor. They were human legs. I froze. I can't explain the feeling of that kind of terror, but I was pretty much paralyzed with fear. I didn't move at all, and only when I realized I wasn't breathing did I have to force myself to do it. I stood there for a couple of minutes, frozen, staring at those feet, black shoes, black socks, and a little ankle showing beneath green pants. There was a dead body in my kitchen, and its legs were sticking out a little bit into my hall. Who knows how long it took me to inch toward the kitchen. At some point I yelled, "Hey!" The legs did not move. When I got close enough, I leaned over to look in my kitchen. It was a maintenance worker from the apartment complex. I yelled, "Hey!" again, but then went to the kitchen to check him. He was alive. I called the front desk and they called 911. The EMTs got there and took him. I was told later that he had diabetes and had diabetic shock and was borderline comatose when they took him to the hospital. I don't know anything really about diabetes, so there's probably a different medical term for it. I was also told he was going to be fine. He apparently came back to work, but I never saw him again. About 10 years ago, I was living with a friend in a ground floor apartment out in Nebraska. We didn't have a garden, but the lounge windows looked out onto a small enclosed lawn behind the block. My roommate had gone out for the evening, leaving me home alone, so I'd taken over the lounge to watch some TV. It was around midnight, when there was a sudden bang on the lounge window. I nearly shit myself. About 3 seconds later, the front door opens, and my roommate walks in. I assume his friends have just dropped him off, and are trying to prank him. So I tell him they're dicks for doing that, as I nearly had a heart attack. Deadpan, he looks at me and tells me he got an Uber home. We pull back the blinds and there's a bloody handprint on the window. Yes, it was actual blood. Police are called. They come and check out the area. They don't find anyone. They take photos and samples of the blood and tell us to call them directly if this happens again. I'm fairly certain we never opened the blinds or windows at night ever again after that. And unfortunately, the police never got back to us if they matched the blood with anyone. To this day, we have no idea who that was. So I was once home alone in my loft bedroom, which was 3 floors up. It was winter, so all the windows are shut. We lived near an industrial park, and we must have had some real good windows and doors, because with the windows shut, no sound came into the house whatsoever. We'd not lived in the house for long, maybe a couple of months at this point. That's when I heard what sounded like an older lady's voice. It wasn't a creepy old lady's voice, more like a nice grandma from a Disney movie. The voice was shouting, "Hello? Hello?" I instantly assume somebody is shouting through the letterbox. I hop up and head down the stairs. Just as I'm heading down the last set of stairs, I hear it again. "Hello?" But this time slower, and the tone was almost arrogant. And to top it off, I can tell that the sound is now coming from above me in the house. The voice was inside the house. I obviously had walked past whoever it was on the middle floor. In instant terror, I ran down the rest of the steps and noticed the front door is wide open. I lock it behind me and run over to my friend's house in the area. Police turned up, found the property completely locked as I left it, but couldn't find anyone in the house. Neighbors told police they'd heard the lady too, right up until the police got there. They said they could hear screaming coming from my house. It was that loud. One neighbor even said he swore he saw someone standing at the top window while I was already heading to my friend's place. I still get goosebumps explaining this to people. I don't believe in the supernatural, but I've really struggled to rationalize this one and have no explanation. If I find out anything new, I'll keep you updated. This isn't my personal story, but it's the creepiest thing I've ever heard. A friend of mine was home alone in her house. She had just moved in with a couple other girls about a month ago. The roommates were getting frustrated with each other because they kept thinking that someone was eating their food or using their things. You know, normal roommate woes. One day when she was home alone, she thought that there might be a squirrel or possum stuck in the attic as she was hearing noises up there. She couldn't reach the vent to open it and see for herself, so she took her phone in and stuck it up the vent to take a picture. When she looked at the picture, she saw not a possum, but a pale, bald, terrifying man looking right into the picture in her attic. She screamed bloody murder and ran out of the house and called the cops. The man was arrested and admitted to having moved into the attic during an open house. He would come down into the house when no one was home and eat their food and use their bathroom. He had even somehow gotten a mattress up into the attic. Seriously terrifying, and thank God he didn't do any physical harm to the girls. One time I got home from school and nobody else was home, which wasn't weird because I was usually the first one home. So I locked the door, threw all my shit down, and jumped in the shower. As I'm showering, I thought I heard someone open the Florida room door. I called out to see if it was my mom or brother. There was no response. I didn't think much of it since the dog wasn't barking, so I resumed showering, and then I definitely heard someone walking through the house. It had hardwood floors that were ancient and warped from the humidity. Every part of the house creaked, and I could hear the creaking moving distinctly through the house. I cut the shower off and called out again. Still no response. By now I'm sketched out. I throw on my robe and slowly come out into the hall to find a huge puddle of water under the attic door. No footprints, just a puddle of water. I'm absolutely freaking out at this point. I call my mom and tell her I heard someone in the house and there's water in the hall, but nobody's there. She just tells me to lock the doors and wait for her since she was just around the corner. She got there and searched the house. All of the doors to the house were locked, even the Florida room one, which I'm 100% sure I heard slide open. The water that was pooled under the attic door wasn't dripping from anything. The attic and ceiling were bone dry and the water was dirty, like it had been dripping off someone's dirty shoes. I went out back to the lake to investigate and found tracks on the bank, but they disappeared in the grass. I showed my mom and wanted to call the cops so bad she kept insisting it was fine and that if it was a person, the dog would have been barking. She hardly even remembers it happening, which makes it sketch me out even more. I'm certain someone was in my house that day. A couple years ago, I was apartment sitting for my sister while she was off camping for the weekend. She told me before she left that there was no reception where she was and I'd be on my own. She'd also recently gotten rid of a leeching, abusive ex-boyfriend and started seeing someone new, who she was off camping with. Everything's going fine. It's the first night and I'm hungry, so I look in her cupboards and find some Nutella and dig in. She doesn't touch it most of the time, just for weekend breakfasts. I then go to bed. I wake up incredibly groggy with someone standing over me and the bedroom light is on. I'm so tired, uncontrollably sleepy, and can't move well at all. Now I know this feeling, it's Rohypnol. I know this because it was one of the medicines I tried for my narcolepsy because I had a sleeping disorder. So now I know I've been drugged and there's a man standing over me while I'm in bed. He looks like my sister's ex, or maybe her landlord. At the time, it was kind of a blur. The landlord was a shitty slumlord who earlier I'd caught unlocking the door to turn a light switch on so he could do hallway maintenance. He must have thought no one was home because he didn't see her car. As soon as he realized someone was home, he booked it out of the whole apartment and peeled his shit truck out. He says, "You shouldn't be here. You're not supposed to be here. Where is she?" And I think I say, "She's not here. I'm house sitting." "Why are you here? Go home." And then I can't stay awake anymore, and I pass out. The next morning I wake up and try to call my sister. I can't reach her, so I leave her a message and write her a note about it. I throw the Nutella out. I was only supposed to stay one night so I could feed the cat for 2 days, but now I knew the gambit and I stayed the second night hoping that fucker would try again. But the next night is uneventful. I go home and my sister calls me in a panic. Turns out while the ex gave his key back, it wouldn't have been a surprise if he made a copy, and she'd been having night terrors of someone standing over her at night. But now she knows it's not just her, and she isn't crazy. My sister changes her locks, throws out all her food, and we move in together in the same complex but a different apartment sometime later. I took the room by the door, and when we saw our locks getting fucked with and things missing or where we wouldn't put them, we changed them again, and didn't give the shitty landlord a copy. I made sure to spin a story to the landlord about what an abusive horror my sister was, how scared I was of her violent nature, and also I became the contact for him. Everything goes through me, and he only ever entered when I was there to supervise. He never bothered her again. Then she moved in with her now fiancé, and everything is better. I am one brave, tough bitch. I literally would have murdered someone if it came to it. I was 14 and home alone. We were living in a crappy part of nowhere in Knoxville, Tennessee at the time. Someone drove up and knocked on our sliding glass door. I was nervous, but I stayed silent. Then they tried to force the door open, but it was held shut with a pole, so they gave up and drove away. I thought that was the end of it. Shortly thereafter, they came back. I heard the sound of someone pressing against the exterior wall. It was them cutting the phone lines to our security system and the alarm speaker. By then, I was on the phone with 911 informing them what was happening. Heavy thudding started to come from the front door as someone bashed it in, breaking the deadbolt. I was terrified and pleaded with 911 to please get someone out here right away. Whoever it was must have heard me talking on the phone, because they immediately left. Although the front door was broken and wide open, it took the cops another 20 minutes to arrive. The person who broke in the door must have cut himself doing it because our porch had droplets of blood on it. My dad screamed at me for not getting a license plate number while I cried. The people who broke in were never caught, and I've never felt safe anywhere since. I had nightmares for a long time. My father used to leave me home alone pretty often back in the early 90s. He was a high school band director and always worked insane hours. I was also a preteen at the time. My dad would always emphasize how important it was to keep both the front door and security screen locked and deadbolted. Doing so was just habit as he left the house, because he would practically yell at us to lock up as he closed the door. Double check. One night while I was home alone, I heard a super loud metallic noise. It was as if someone was shaking the daylights out of the all-metal security screen. I crawled up to the front door because I was a paranoid child and did not want the lights to cast my shadow on the windows, and slowly stood up on my tippy toes to look out the peephole. Bad idea. There was a very tall man I had never seen before, holding onto the doorknob and pulling on it with every ounce of strength he had. I started screaming that ear-piercing 10-year-old girl scream, and the guy took off running up the street. I never told my family. I was too scared, like I was going to be the one in trouble because some crazy guy was trying to get into the house. When I was 15, I used to live with my older sister and her family. During that time, I did a lot of babysitting for my sister to give her and her partner some alone time. They both worked long hours and had 4 kids. They needed the break. On one of these nights, I had a really weird experience. I was sitting on my laptop in my bedroom when my sister poked her head in the door to say goodbye. The kids were all asleep in bed, so I didn't have to do much while they were away, and they would be home at about 12:30. As I settled in for a night of Minecraft, I listened to the sound of them leaving. I heard the front door slide shut. I heard footsteps on the deck. Then I heard the car pull out of the driveway and take off down the street. Then all was quiet. I briefly considered locking the front door, but I decided to put it off until later that night. I figured I'd still be awake when they got home anyway, so I didn't see the point. I'd just have to get up and unlock it again later. So I left it. Maybe 15 minutes after they left, I heard heavy footsteps on the front deck. Then I heard the front door slide open. I assumed it was my sister's partner coming home to grab something they forgot. I didn't get up because I figured he'd be in and out. In the quiet house, I heard the heavy footsteps walk through the lounge, then the dining room, then stop in the kitchen. I heard this person rummage through all of the cupboards and drawers in the kitchen, before finally walking out of the house, back the way he came. It was only after my sister and her partner got home that I realized that the owner of the big heavy footsteps didn't have a car. I never heard a car on the street or in the driveway. It wasn't my sister's partner. At the time, I remember asking my sister about the footsteps. She had no idea what I was talking about and insisted it wasn't them. Recently, I actually brought it up again, and again, she insists it wasn't either of them. Someone seriously broke into the house while I was alone with 4 small children. I have no idea what this person took, but I'm glad I didn't get up to greet them, and I am immensely grateful none of the kids got up either. Every Halloween, my mom goes crazy with the decorations. I'm talking creepy dolls, bats, spider webs, and all that good stuff. Anyways, when I was in 6th grade, my mom got this new giant spider decoration. It was the one where it would spring up if something walked past it. She put it inside right next to the front door. So a couple days before Halloween, my mom went to pick my sister up from soccer practice, and my dad wasn't home from work yet. It was probably around 7:30 at night. I was sitting up in my room with my door open, when I thought I heard the front door open and some guys whispering. A couple seconds later, I heard the spider jump up and make a loud noise, while my dogs started going absolutely crazy in the laundry room where their cages were. I completely froze in my chair, not knowing what to do. I didn't want to just sit there helpless, but also didn't want to give myself away. I finally decided to sprint to my bathroom, lock the door, and call my mom to get the hell home. After about 15 minutes of shitting my pants, I hear the garage open and my mom come in with my sister. She called my name, saying everything was okay, and the door was unopened and locked. I was so sure someone tried breaking in, but my mom assured me I was just scared from the decoration going off and the Halloween season. It wasn't until I was in high school that I brought this up, and my mom told me she came home, and the front door was actually slightly open. It could have been the wind opening the door or two guys trying to break in. If the latter is true, that spider decoration and my dogs barking probably scared the hell out of them and saved me. Congratulations, you've made it to the end, hopefully alive. If you enjoy my content and would like to hear more, be sure to subscribe. Also leave a comment on which story scared you the most. I'll catch you next video.